place. There is also a gate. What else can you see from there? You can see classrooms. These ones are classrooms, my babies. What do we call this place here? This place is a school. And why do we say this place is a school? Because there are many learners there, and there are classrooms, and of course classrooms are found at schools, my babies. If we remember well, we have learned about the people that provide services in our communities in the previous lessons, and now I want you to tell me, who are the people that help us at school? It's the teachers, my babies at home. Now, I want us to look at the importance of a school in a community. At school, we are equipped with skills and knowledge, my babies. And at school, we learn to read. We also learn to write. We also socialize and play with our friends. At school, we are being prepared for future so that we can use our minds within our societies, my babies. At school, we sometimes eat, we sometimes sing songs. Hey, at school, it's very, very nice. Now, I want us to look at this picture, my babies. What can you see from this picture, my babies at home? You can see an ambulance. Very good. This one is an ambulance. What else can you see from this picture? You can see a hospital. Okay, that's wonderful. What else can you see from this picture, my babies? You can see someone who is being assisted who is being assisted on a wheelchair, my babies. This place is called a hospital because of this cross. We see a hospital with this cross. It is sometimes red or sometimes white, my babies at home. And who are the people who assist us in the hospital? Those people are nurses and doctors. Now I want us to look at the importance of a hospital in a community. It is where people who are sick and injured are being treated and given medical advice. And hospitals also provide complete health care for people, my babies. In the rural areas, we find clinics. Those are small hospitals that are found in the rurals, and there are no doctors in the rural areas. And the clinics provide preventive care and treatment for my illnesses, my babies. Now, I want us to look at this picture here. What can you see from this picture, my babies? You can see a police van. Very good. This is a police van. What else can you see? You can see a house. Okay, that's wonderful. This is a house. What else can you see? You can see a flag. This is a flag. What do we call this place, my babies at home? We call this one a police station. Why do we say this place is a police station? Because of the police logo on top of the door of that entrance. There is a police logo there. We also see the police logo here on the door of the police van, my babies. And now I want you to tell me, who help us in the police station? It's the police officers, my babies. Now I want us to look at the importance of a police station in a community. Police station is where police officers work and report for duty. It is where tools used by police officers are kept. And sometimes the people that commit crime are kept there for a while before they are sent to jail. And a police station, you also go to a police station when you want to report a crime, my babies at home. Now I want us to look at this picture here. What can you see from this picture here? You can see a church. This one is a church, my babies. Why do you say this one is a church? Because of the cross. There is a cross at the entrance of a church, but this cross is not the same as the one that we find in hospitals, my babies. Now I want us to look at the importance of a church. A church is a place where Christians gather to worship God. Christians also pray and give offerings. They also sing there. A church is a very important place in our communities. Sometimes we host our weddings in church, and sometimes when our beloved has left us, we do memorial services there. Now I want us to look at this picture here, my babies. Here we have a house. Where do you think you have seen this house? Yeah, someone is saying is saw this one at Inkundla. This place we call it Inkundla, or a constituency, my babies at home. This place here, our Tinkundla or our constituencies in Swaziland, they share the similar structure throughout the country, except for one which is in Lobamba. Tinkundla centers, they function as centers to promote development in the community. They also coordinate and provide a link between government and the community, my babies. Now I want us to also look at this picture here. What can you see here? You can see a house. Okay, that's wonderful. This one here is also a house, but different from the one that we were looking in the previous picture. This one, we call it a neighborhood care point, my babies. Sometimes you call it a dladleni, sometimes you call it it's NCPs, my babies. You see this one, most of the time NCP has this logo here, which is NCP, my babies at home. NCP, they are very important in our lives. They are designed to provide care to the orphans and vulnerable children in the community. They also take care of the school-going and non-school-going children by giving them food at certain times of the day. You know, some people in your community go to the NCP to have their meals, my babies. Now I want us to look at this picture here, my babies. What can you see from this picture? You can see people who are carrying their groceries, my babies. They are probably coming from the shops. This place here, I think they are shops. We have different shops like Ackermans, we have Spar, we have ShopRite, we have Pick and Pay. A lot of shops whereby we get goods, my babies, at home. Shops doesn't have a logo, or they doesn't have any symbol, but they are only recognizable with their names, my babies at home. Shops are very important. Goods are sold and services are provided. We get our yogurts from the shops. We get sweets from the shops. We get cell phones. We buy electricity from the shops, my babies. Sometimes in the rural areas, we have groceries. Those are small shops that are found in the rural areas, but in towns we find the big shops like Spar, Pick and Pay, and all those. It is important to have shops, because we will not be able to get many of the things we need every day without the shops, my babies at home. Now I want us to look at these symbols, and I want you to tell me, where did you find these symbols, my babies? Now let us look at this symbol here. Where did you find this symbol? You find this symbol in the at hospitals, my babies. This one, we find it in the hospitals. And where do we find this one? This one is an inkundla, my babies. Inkundla, yes, or constituency. And where do you find this one, my babies? We find this one at neighborhood care points, my babies. And lastly, where do you find this logo here? You find it at the police station. We also have a more clearer one here, whereby with this one you find it at the police station, you find it at the to the police vans, you also find it to their uniforms, my babies at home. I hope you got everything. We have talked about a school, we have talked about a church, we have talked about a police station, we have talked about a hospital, we have talked about inkundla, we have talked about a NCP, we have also talked about shops and their symbols, my babies at home. Later, I want you to open on page 17 of your workbooks and write the name of each important building under the picture, and also tell your parents what each picture means on page 8. Color it. And on page 20 of your workbooks, I want you to choose one important building that you have learned about. Draw it and write its name under it. Please, my babies, try to visit the nearby buildings and find out what activities take place there, my babies at home. Please, after writing this work, try to show it to your guardian, to your parents, to your aunts, to your grandmother, whosoever you are staying with, my babies. Please be honest with this one. As we come to the end of our lesson today, my babies, we have named and identified important buildings in our communities, which are church, a clinic, police station, school, shop, inkundla, a neighborhood care point. We have also described how to recognize the important buildings. We have also described the symbols found in each building in the communities, my babies. I hope you enjoyed the lesson just like I enjoyed staying with you, my angels. Love you big time.
Thank you so much, Lopsile. What a lovely lesson that you had just there. We're hoping your babies actually enjoyed it, and we will be seeing you soon, I'm sure.
Definitely, my angel.
Thank you so much. All right, grades 3 and 4s, please get closer to your screens. Up next is your religious education lesson with Monde Dlamini. We will be right back after this.
Hey girlfriend, call me. Hey, my name is Gigi Caddingham. And Gigi's at the movie store. Have you seen my life? I came here to say hello, everyone. This is who I am. But let's go. You want a piece of me? Yeah, you know you wanna. Hey, hey.
on my swag radar.
Buhle bethu imvelo yethu, buhle bethu tindzawo tethu, indalo yashada nemasiko kuhle kwethu, kuvakasha kwethula umthwalo emahlombe ethu, hloma ngwane vuka uvakashe, indlela uyikhombe etindzaweni tethu, temvelo nembukiso ungcebeleke uthathe netithombe. Lalela ke nangu sonkondlo waseswatini akutekela, ayibeka indzaba ayihlela, kuhle kwelijaha lishela ngiyakutshela, diningi tindzawo longativakashela, hloma ngwane vuka uvakashe la, phana lapha kuvakasha kuyayelapha enhlitiyo kanye nemicondvo kuyawuphumuta, kugcinisa buhlobo nebungane losebundenga ndenga, with a trip to Mantenga Falls or a sip among friends of Sibebe Brew on Sibebe Mountain, or perhaps your cup of tea is backpacking and horse riding, sightseeing the seamless streams and springs that stream across the gorgeous valleys of the mountainous kingdoms of Eswatini. We have you covered. Hloma ngwane vuka uvakashe, buhle bethu yimvelo yethu, buhle bethu ngabuthola nasebantwini bethu.
Emaphoyisa nesive lolu hlelo lwakho loluchamuka khona embuthweni wembobe lolufundisa kabanti liphindze licwayise sona phela sive ngato tindzaba tekuvikela bona kuqala.
Thokotela uhlelo lwakho emaphoyisa nesive kuso sikhathi lesisha njalo ngabo lesine ngensimbi yesihlanu sihambama khona la Eswatini TV.
A very good afternoon and a very warm welcome back to Home Study on Eswatini TV. My name is Nogwazi Dlamini. Right now we are doing grades 3 and 4 religious education with Monde Dlamini, who is already with me in the studio. Also joining me in the studio is our sign language interpreter Nompumelelo Hatebe. Good afternoon, Monde. How are you?
Afternoon, Nogwazi. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. Thank you.
I'm good too.
Okay, today the topic is Good Friday, right?
Yes, that's the topic for today.
Okay, what are you expecting your students to have learned by the end of the lesson?
Okay, by the end of the lesson, I expect the learner to be able to tell the story of the death of Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. And secondly, they should be able to explain why Christians observe Good Friday.
All right, thank you for that. Grades 3 and 4, I hope you are ready for your lesson. And a reminder about our social media platforms. Of course, we are live right now on YouTube and on Facebook. If you have any questions, grade 3 and 4s, I hope that you will use the WhatsApp number to text us those questions. Monde, you may please begin with your lesson.
Thank you, Nogwazi. Okay, as Nogwazi has said, today's topic is on Good Friday. Good Friday is one of the festivals and holidays celebrated in Christianity. Now, one thing worth noting, my learner at home, is that festivals and holidays in Christianity all center around events that happened in the life of Jesus Christ, starting from the time he was born up to his death, and then we also celebrate his resurrection and his ascension back to heaven. But today we're going to be looking at Good Friday, which is a very important lesson in the life of a Christian. As we already said, by the end of the lesson, my learner at home, you should be able to tell the story of the death of Jesus Christ, as well as explain why Christians observe Good Friday. Okay. So, why are we having today's lesson? What is the rationale or the importance of today's lesson? Today's lesson hopes to make the learner appreciate Jesus' coming and dying for us on the cross and giving us the gift of salvation. And also, the learner should be able to appreciate Jesus' death and resurrection, giving us hope that we too will rise from the dead one day. So I hope you have your pens and your paper, because there's some notes that you're supposed to be taking down, as well as your RSV Holy Bible. Before we get into our lesson, there are some keywords that I would love for us to look at. And these keywords are cross. The second keyword is crucifixion. And then we have a tomb. What is a cross? A cross is a structure formed by two pieces of wood put across each other, as we can see in our picture that is showing on your screen. Our second keyword is crucifixion. Crucifixion means death by nailing on a cross. We've already explained what a cross is. And our last keyword is a tomb. What is a tomb? A tomb is a large stone structure where someone is buried. In previous grades, we looked at a Christian festival celebrating the birth of Jesus, and that is Christmas. If you remember my learner at home, when we're looking at Christmas, we saw how God loved us so much that he sent his only begotten Son, Jesus, to come to earth. He was born in a manger, as we can see in a picture, in a humble place in a little town in Bethlehem. The purpose of Jesus coming to earth was so that one day he would go to the cross and die, and thus save us from our sins. Good Friday. Jesus was born so that he could save people from their sins. We find this in the Holy Bible in the book of Matthew chapter 1 verse 21. But first, he had to die. Good Friday is observed as the day when Jesus Christ died on the cross. I want us to take note of the words Good Friday because this day happened on a Friday, which is the 5th day of the week. We are now going to look at the story of the death of Jesus Christ. I want you to pay close attention because this is the purpose of today's lesson. You should be able to narrate the story and tell it in your own words. This story is taken from the book of Luke, chapter 23, from verse 32 to 35. We are going to skip a few verses and go to verse 44 all the way to 53. Now, there are other books or gospels in the Bible that tell a similar story. Like you find the story of the death of Jesus in the book of Matthew. You also find it in the book of Mark. But today, the story of Good Friday that we're going to listen to today is taken from the book of Luke. And here goes the story. We're going to start in verse 32 to verse 33. And the story goes. And when they had come to the place which was called the Skull, there they crucified him and the criminals, one on his right and the other one on his left. The word skull, if you look at other translations of the Bible, some translations call it Calvary. Others call it Golgotha. Now, it doesn't matter what translation you refer to, but it means the same thing. The skull is a place in Jerusalem where Jesus Christ was crucified. So why is it called the skull? Because it's a hill or a mountain that is shaped like a skull. So that is why it's called the skull. But you can also call it Calvary. You can also call it Golgotha. Verse 34. And Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they cast lots to divide his garments. Casting lots in this sentence means they were gambling. It's like when you gamble. They were gambling or they were taking a bet. These were the Roman soldiers that we see in the pictures gambling for the clothes of Jesus. Verse 35 continues, and the people stood by watching. But the rulers scoffed at him, saying, he saved others, let him save himself. So here were the rulers mocking Jesus and making fun of him as he hung on the cross, while the people stood at the foot of the cross looking up to him. Verse 44 to 45 continues, it was now by the 6th hour, and there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. So for a total of 3 hours, from the 6th hour to the 9th hour, we are told there was total darkness in the land. And when this had happened, something also happened. The curtain of the temple was torn in two, as we can see in the picture. Now, people used to go to the temple to worship, and usually the priest is the only one who could go behind the curtain, because it was considered a very sacred or holy place. But something significant happened while Jesus was on the cross, just right before he died. The Bible tells us that the curtain was torn into two. And I think this was God telling us that now there was no barrier that was going to separate people from getting access to him. So because the curtain was like a barrier that was preventing us from getting direct access to God. And by the curtain being torn, God was opening up himself to us and telling us that there's nothing now that stands between us and him, and we could get access to his throne. Verse 46. Then Jesus, crying with a loud voice, said, Father, unto thy hands I commit my spirit. And having said this, he breathed his last. We see him on the cross, and he looks like he's sleeping. He had just breathed his last breath, and we could say it is at this point that the Lord Jesus Christ gave up the spirit and he died. The centurion, that's verse 47, the centurion saw what had taken place. He praised God and said, certainly, this man was innocent. We can see the centurion at the feet of the Lord Jesus Christ in the picture. Now, it's worth noting that a centurion at that time was not just an ordinary soldier. He was a commander of about 100 men. That means century. So he was a commander over 100 men. So he was like a boss in the army. So we see him at this point realizing that this man who was dead on the cross was not just any ordinary person. He was certainly sent from God. So we see him at that time bowing down at the feet of Jesus when he realized who Jesus was. And it continues from verse 48 to 49. And all the multitudes who assembled to see the sight returned home beating their breasts. And all the women who had followed him, they stood at a distance and watched what happened. We can see the people now finally going back, leaving Jesus at the cross with the two criminals that were on either side of him. Verse 50 to 52. Now there was a man named Joseph from Arimathea, a member of the council, a good and righteous man. Now this Joseph in our story is not Joseph, the father of Jesus. Joseph was a member of the council that stood and decided that Jesus Christ should be crucified. But because he was a good and righteous man, he did not take part in making this decision. After he saw that Jesus had died on the cross, he went back to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. And we see in verse 53 that he took it down from the cross and he wrapped it in linen shroud, and he laid him in a rock-hewn tomb where no one had ever been laid. The word hewn in this verse means cut. So it was a tomb that was cut from the rock. And shroud is a special cloth. It's a special cloth that they used to wrap dead people. There we see it, Jesus being wrapped in the linen shroud. The purpose of this cloth was to preserve the body so that it doesn't decompose or begin to rot. Also, it was a way of showing respect to the departed by covering them up. Okay, so we've seen what happened on Good Friday, which is a day that is celebrated as the day when Jesus died on the cross. Why is Good Friday important to Christians? Good Friday is important to Christians because they believe that Jesus died to take away their sins, and by so doing, giving them a chance of going to heaven. So that is why Good Friday is very important to Christians. Good Friday is not just all about Easter egg hunts and celebrations. It's a special day for Christians because it reminds them of something special that God did to reconcile them back to Him.
I'm sorry, Monday, to interrupt your lesson right there, but could we please take a bit of a short break? Viewers at home, we will be right back after this.
Thank you.
Jive nome kanjani and forget what bothers you the most. On this stage, our dancers fire in their eyes come alive. They explore the fires that lay deep within with different dance moves. On this stage, they claim their space and who they are with sparkles, freestyle, silent and storm dances. All this and more with our vibrant and beautiful presenter, Nikki. Jive nome kanjani Season 4 coming soon on Eswatini TV. Sibuko seMaSwati.
Welcome back to Home Study on Eswatini TV. We are doing religious education for the grade 3 and the grade 4s with Mondi Dlamini. Mondi, you can please continue with your lesson.
Thank you, Nogwazi. Okay, welcome back, my Lena at home. So we're trying to find out why is Good Friday an important day to Christians before we were interrupted. Well, Good Friday is a very important day to Christians because Christians believe that Jesus died to take away their sins, and by so doing, giving them a chance of going to heaven. Okay, so I have a few questions for you just to find out if you guys were paying attention and were following as the lesson was going on. I hope your piece of paper is ready so that you can take down the questions as I give them out to you. I hope you're ready for the first one. My first question for today is, who died on the cross? I'll repeat it. Who died on the cross? And that question is worth 1 mark. Very good. Jesus Christ died on the cross, and 2 criminals were crucified with him on that day. Our next question is, on what day of the week did Jesus die? On what day of the week did Jesus die? Friday. Friday is the day of the week on which Jesus Christ died. Very good. My third question is, what did Joseph do with Jesus' body? And because you have to explain this one, it is worth 2 marks. What did Joseph do with Jesus' body? He took the body down from the cross, wrapped it in cloth, and put it in the tomb. Very good. And the last question. Give 2 reasons why Christians call this day Good Friday. And that question is also worth 2 marks. Give 2 reasons why Christians call this day Good Friday. Christians call this day Good Friday because they believe that Jesus died to take away their sin. And secondly, Jesus' death gives them a chance of going to heaven. So that is why Christians call this day Good Friday. We've come to the end of our lesson, but before we do that, I would love for us to go over our lesson for the last time. In this lesson, we have covered that on Good Friday, Christians remember the day Jesus died on the cross. And we're also taught that Jesus was crucified on a cross on Mount Calvary. You remember when we first read, it said the skull. This is one and the same place. So Jesus was crucified on a cross on Mount Calvary with 2 criminals. We also learned that a man named Joseph took Jesus' body and wrapped it in cloth. He put it in a tomb made of rock. And lastly, we learned that Christians believe that Jesus Christ died to save people from their sins and help them go to heaven. We've come to the end of our lesson, my learner at home, but this is not where our story ends. It doesn't end with Jesus Christ dying and lying in the tomb, because on the 3rd day he rose up again. But that is for the next lesson, where we look at the resurrection of Jesus Christ. I hope you had a good time, because I did. See you next time.
Thank you very much, Munda, for your lovely, lovely lesson. We're hoping your students back at home enjoyed it and they learned a few things about Good Friday, and we're looking forward to seeing you again.
Thank you so much, Nobazi.
Thank you very much. Grade 5 and 6, please get closer to your screens, because up next is your mathematics lesson with Sibusiso Mbuli. We will be right back after this.
Swag radar.
You ain't call me. Hey, my name is Gigi Cunningham. And Gigi's a movie star. Have you seen my life? I came here to say hello, everyone. This is who I am. But let's go.
You want a piece of me? Yeah, you know you wanna
Hey,
me like you got
hey.
Run there, you with me. Power, swag, on my swag radar.
Buhle bethu imvelo yethu. Buhle bethu tindzawo tethu. Indalo yashada nemasiko kuhle kwethu. Kuvakasha kwethula umthwalo emahlombe ethu. Hloma ngwane vuka uvakashe indlela uyikhombe etindzaweni tethu. Temvelo nembukiso ungcebeleke uthathe netithombe. Lalela ke nangu sonkondlo waseswatini akutekela ayibeka indzaba ayihlela kuhle kwelijaha lishela ngiyakutshela diningi tindzawo longativakashela hloma ngwane vuka uvakashe la phana lapha kuvakasha kuyayelapha enhlitiyo kanye nemqondo kuyawuphumuda uqinisa buhlobo nebungane losebundenga ndenga with a trip to Mantenga Falls or a sip among friends of Sibebe Brew on Sibebe Mountain, or perhaps your cup of tea is backpacking and horse riding, sightseeing the seamless streams and springs that stream across the gorgeous valleys of the mountainous kingdoms of Eswatini. We have you covered. Hloma ngwane vuka uvakashe buhle bethu imvelo yethu buhle bethu ngabuthola nasebantwini bethu.
A very warm welcome back to Home Daddy on Eswatini TV, and a very good afternoon if you have just joined us, especially if you are in grade 5 and in grade 6, because right now we are doing mathematics for the grades 5 and the grade 6s with Mr. Sibusiso Mbuli. My name is Nogwazi Dlamini. Also joining me in the studio is our sign language interpreter Nomcebo Dlamini. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Afternoon. I'm very, very fine.
Okay, I'm doing good. Thank you very much. Today we're doing the area of a rectangle.
Yes.
What are you expecting your students at home to have learned by the end of the lesson?
I'm just expecting them to know how to find the area of a rectangle and a square, and also to find the perimeter of a rectangle and a square.
All right, thank you so much for that, sir. We're hoping that your students, your grade 5s and your grade 6s are ready for the lesson. And of course, a reminder, grade 5 and 6, that we are live right now on YouTube and on Facebook. You can also join us on those platforms. And of course, to use the WhatsApp number to ask us any questions that you might have during this lesson. Sir, you may please begin with your lesson.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Lena at home. As mentioned, I am Mr. Sibusiso Mbuli, teaching the grade 6 mathematics, just inclusive in the grade 5s, under the topic the area of a rectangle. The area of a rectangle, which is in your people's books, unit 3, lesson 8, on pages 46, on pages 64 to 66. As this lesson progresses, you might feel like you want to ask a question or you want to add something. Feel free to WhatsApp using this contact number 765397778. 765397778. You may ask yourself, why do we teach area? Why do we teach perimeter? Area has many practical applications in building, farming, architecture, science, and the other spheres of life. Also, this perimeter is a vital concept in fencing, construction, carpentry, survey, and in other disciplines. By the end of this lesson, I want you, learner at home, to achieve the following important objectives. One is just to find the area and the perimeter of a rectangle and a square by counting, and also find this area and perimeter by using a method or by calculating. These are very important concepts, by calculating and also by counting. These are two important concepts. This lesson is not coming here for the first time. We covered this in grade 5s and the previous grades, like finding area by counting squares. It is not something which is new. It is not a new concept. Also, to measure short distances using feet. and also using a meter stick, which is a standard unit. It is something you are familiar with. It's not a new concept altogether. Learner at home, make sure the following materials must be by your side. The following materials are very important for this lesson. One, it is the mathematics people's book. Your book must be there. We are using it. And also the workbook. The workbook, more especially for evaluation, the workbook is very, very important. Then your mathematic exercise book must be just by your side. A pen, a pencil, and a ruler. Pen, a pencil, and a ruler. There are words which are very, very key, which are very, very important as this lesson progresses. And you must know these terms. They are very, very important. The one of them is boundary. You may ask yourself, what is meant by this term boundary? Boundary is the distance around a shape or a figure. That is boundary. Sometimes you can say it is a line that marks the limits of an area. That is boundary. That's boundary. Then another one, area. Area, which is a keyword. Area. Area refers to the space in a shape. I want to emphasize here, in a shape or the space in the boundary. We refer to that as area. Another one, perimeter. Perimeter refers to the distance around the outside of a shape or a figure. Then we also have unit. Listen very carefully with this one, learner at home. Unit. These are just standard measures on a grid. In short, we can say it is just one side of the small square in a grid. Right in front of you, you have your exercise book. It has a lot of small squares. One side of those small squares is referred to as a unit. I hope you are getting this concept very, very clear. Then, learner at home, I want you to draw for me a rectangle. I want you to draw for me a rectangle. A rectangle of length 4 squares and width 3 squares. I have one here. Right here, I have one. 4 by 3, even this one. There are 1, 2, 3, 4. And this side 1, 2, 3, 4 by 3. Draw this one. Learner at home, please draw this rectangle. Then now, I want to ask you how to find the area of this rectangle. How to find the area of this rectangle? Simple. You can just count the number of squares in this rectangle. Count the number of squares in this rectangle. In our case, let us count. I hope you are also counting at home. Let us count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 squares is the area of this rectangle just by counting. Oh, it's simple. Grade 6 and grade 5. By counting, you can find the area, counting the number of squares. I hope you are getting this concept very, very clear. On the very same rectangle, I want you to note this. This rectangle is made out of many small squares. We have this square, this one, just across the whole page. So in this, one small square has 4 units. 4 sides, the same as 4 units. For example, this one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Then now, when we want to find the perimeter of this rectangle, just count the number of small sides that are on the boundary of this rectangle. Just count only the small sides. Let's say we start here. This is our starting point. So in this starting point, we start counting outside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We have 14 small sides on the boundary. The 14 is then referred to as the perimeter, which means the perimeter of this rectangle is 14 units. I hope you are following Lena at home. It's a very simple concept. Follow. Then now, I want you to draw another rectangle of length this time 5 centimeters, of length 5 centimeters, or 5 squares, and width 3. That's one. I hope you can see even here. We have it here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 of them. They are there. 5. Then by 3, we have 1, 2, 3. This is 5 by 3. Oh, that's great. You can see this one. So in this one, I also want you to find the area. How to find the area of this one? Remember, we said to find the area of such triangle or such rectangle, of such rectangle. You find the area by counting the number of squares. Just by counting the number of squares. I have something that I have just on my hand right now. This one. Count the number of squares. Lena at home. Count this one. Just count. How many squares, how many small squares are in this rectangle? Count them. Count. You are counting at home. If it means, let us count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 squares, which means the area of this rectangle is 15 squares. I hope you are following Lena at home. Then on the very same rectangle, we can find the area by using a method or by using a rule. I know you are familiar with rules in grade 5s, grade 4s. By using a method or by using a rule to find the area of a rectangle, we can still multiply. We multiply what, Lena at home? You multiply the length by the width. Remember, the length, it is the long side, and the width, it is the short side. In this rectangle, our length has how many squares? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you will have 5 centimeters multiplied by the width. The width has how many squares? 1, 2, 3 multiplied by 3 centimeters. I hope you are following Lena at home. Now look very carefully here. Let us now find the answer, starting by the numbers. 5 multiplied by 3. Listen very carefully. I'm not saying 5 centimeters, but I'm saying 5 multiplied by 3. 5 multiplied by 3 is 15. Here is our 15. Now we're left with the units. The units, it is centimeters and centimeters. But it is illogical to write centimeters. So then you write 15 squared centimeters. You may ask yourself, where does the squared come from? Centimeters. So the area of this rectangle, is 15 squared centimeters. I hope you are following Lena at home. Then when it comes to a square is also another very, very important shape. You can also find the area of a square. You can find the area of a square. How? First, by counting the number of squares inside. It's a simple concept. Just counting. Grade 6, grade 5, counting is a simple concept. Let us count the number of squares. Let's say I have maybe one of the squares. I have this one on my chart. This one, it is 4 squares by 4 squares. This is a square. Then now, counting the number of sides, we can count. Even you at home, you can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Which means the area of this square is 16 centimeters, or it is 16 squares. I hope you are getting that. 16 squares is the area of this square. I hope you are following then at all. Also then, there are situations whereby you can be given a rectangle without the squares. Just on a blank sheet of paper, just a rectangle without the squares. For example, this one. This is just a rectangle, but you can be asked to find the area of this. In this case, you can be given the units. Let's say one side is 6 centimeters. One side, or the length is 6 centimeters, and the width is 3 centimeters. How to find the area of this, of such a shape? Simple, learner at home. We use the rule, or we use the method. Remember the method. The method here is just area is equals to length multiplied by the width. That's the method. That's the rule. In our case, our length is 6 centimeters multiplied by our width, which is 3 centimeters. Then now look at the numbers. 6 multiplied by 3. What do you get? 18. 18. So you write your 18. Then you look at the units. Centimeters multiplied by centimeters. 2 of these centimeters. So you will get squared centimeters. So the area of a rectangle with length 6 centimeters and width 3 centimeters is equals to 18 squared centimeters. I hope you are following, learner at home. Same concept. Now let's say you are not given a rectangle, but you are given what? A square. Do you remember a square? A square is just a shape with all the sides equal. 4 of them, they are equal, and the corners are equal. And remember, the corners are square corners, or the corners are exactly 90 degrees. To find the area of a square, still even here, to find the area, you multiply area. You multiply. Let me write here. Area is equals to, you multiply the length by the width. But in this case, can you show, or can you tell which one is the length, which one is the width? It is difficult with a square. It is difficult. So because of that, we normally say then area of a square is equals to side multiplied by side. Oh, that's good. Area of a square is side multiplied by side. In our case, each side here is 5 centimeters multiplied by another side, which is 5 centimeters. Oh, that's great. I think you are following, learner at home. Now look at the numbers. 5 multiplied by 5, you get 25. The units, centimeters multiplied by centimeters. The units will be squared centimeters. Oh, that's great. Squared centimeters. Never make a mistake when writing units when finding the area of a rectangle or a square. The units must be squared. The units must be squared. If you write 25 centimeters, you are no more talking about the area of this square. You are talking about something else. The squared units are very, very important. Now, let us come to the concept of a perimeter. Still on the concept of a perimeter, I want us to understand it is very clear. When finding the perimeter, remember, we said Perimeter is just the distance around a figure or around a shape. Just the distance. In our case here, because maybe our rectangle is on a grid paper, we just count the number of short or the number of sides which are exactly on the boundary of this rectangle. Let us look at this. Now let's hope you have drawn your rectangle. 1 2 3 4 5. It is 5 by 3. 5 by 3. Then in this rectangle, I want us to count. Look very carefully here. I want to count. I want to find the perimeter. So I start here. 1 2 3 4 5. Then 6 7 8. Then 9 10 11 12 13. Then 14 15 16. I hope you are following Lena at home. You just count all around, and the number that you get, you write it down by counting. In our case here, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16. So it is 16 units. 16 units just by counting. You can also use the addition. You can use addition here. That's another one, finding the perimeter. How do you add? You add the units in one length plus the units in another length plus the units in one width and the units in another width. Then it will be just all around. In our case here, one length is 1 2 3 4 5. So here it will be 5 units. 5 units plus the other length, 5 units. 5 units. Then the width, 5 units. 5 units. Then another width, the other width, 5 units. Then now you just add 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. You get 20. Oh, I'm sorry, Lena at home. Let me start afresh with this concept. I made a mistake here. I'm saying you add the length plus the length plus the width plus the width. Then our length, Lena at home, our length is 5 units. 5 units. Plus, the other length is 5 units. 5 units. Then plus, our width is 3. I am very sorry, Lena, I wrote 5. But it is 3. So it is 3 units, then plus the other width, which is 3 units. Then we add 5 plus 5 plus 3 plus 3. You get 16. 16 units. I hope you followed very well with this one. By counting, you got 16 units. 16 units. Also, when using the addition, you get 16 units. I hope you are following Lena at home. Now, a square. Also a square, I want us to find the perimeter of a square. Still here, we can first count. Just counting. Counting is a very simple concept. Count. In this case, we start here. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16, which means by counting we are able to get 16 units. 16 units. I hope you are following Lena at home. Then when using the addition is still here. Now in this case, it is not a rectangle, but it is a square. A square has 4 sides. So in this case, it will be a side plus a side plus another side plus another side. The 4 sides. Each side has how many units? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, in this case, it will be 4 units plus 4 units plus 4 units plus 4 units equals 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. What do you get? Lena at home. I hope you are adding. You get 16 units. 16 units. Even here, you can notice that when you are counting, you get 16. Even when adding, you still get 16. Which means in mathematics, sometimes you can use different methods, but you get the same answer. Now, Lena at home, I want us now to work on finding the perimeter in a situation whereby you are given a shape without squares, but maybe you can be given the units. How many centimeters? How many centimeters? A shape like this one. You can find the perimeter in such conditions. Let's say you draw at home. Draw for me a rectangle. A rectangle with the length 6 centimeters. I want you to draw for me 6 centimeters. Draw at home. Draw. Then the width 3 centimeters. So it is 6 centimeters of length and 3 centimeters, which is the width. Then here, to find the perimeter of this, of such, still here you add what? You add the length, one length here plus another length, because this is a rectangle. Length plus length, then plus width, then plus another width. In our case here, we are going to add 6 centimeters plus 6 centimeters plus the width 3 centimeters plus another width 3 centimeters. If we add these numbers, 6 plus 6 plus 3 plus 3, you get a number which is 6 plus 6 is 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Do not be lazy to count. Add here. You get your answer, which is 18. Then here is your 18 centimeters. Remember here, we don't square the units. This is just the distance around this figure. So it is 18 centimeters when finding the perimeter of a rectangle. Then finding perimeter of a square in a situation whereby you are not given the squares. This is just on a blank sheet of paper or on a blank a paper like this one. This is a square. It's just a square without the small squares. But if we are given the units, it is possible to find the perimeter of this of a shape like this one. Let's say you, Lena, at home, draw for me a square with the length or with one side 5 centimeters. So this is a square, 5, 5, 5 all around, 5 centimeters. Draw for me, Lena, at home. I hope you are drawing. Oh, that's good. That's wonderful. Now, how to find the perimeter of a square? Still, if you add side plus side plus side plus side. In this case, it is 5 centimeters plus 5 centimeters plus 5 centimeters plus 5 centimeters, which is equals to 20 centimeters. The perimeter of a square with one side 5 centimeter is equals to 20 centimeters. That is the perimeter of this. You can be given other scenarios. Let's say I can challenge you, Lena, at home. Please draw for me your own square with one side 7 centimeters. Not 5 now, 7 centimeters. Then find for me the perimeter. Find for me the perimeter and send the answer I'll just check whether you are following or not. One side 7 centimeters, and find for me the perimeter. I hope, Lena, at home, the concept of finding the area of a square and of a rectangle is something which you now is something that you can do even on your own at home. It's a very simple concept, but I can remind you briefly. I can just remind you with some of the concepts, just a little bit of it, so you can find the area of any given shape by counting the number of small squares in that figure or in that shape. It can be any. Just counting the number of squares, you get the area. You get the area there. Then also, even if you are given a square, by counting the number of squares, you can get the area. In our case, in the case here, the rectangle here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it is 10 squares. Then here the area is 9 squares. That is the area. Then also, when given units, you just multiply the side by the width. You'll be able to get the answer 5 multiplied by 3 in our case. Of a square, 4 centimeters, just 4 centimeters multiplied by 4 centimeters, you will get 16 centimeters squared. Remember, the units are squared when given the units. I hope, Lena, at home, you followed very, very, very closely to this lesson, and it has been beneficial in you. Maybe if for additional work, feel free to open your books on page 64 to 66, or your workbooks pages 19 and 20. Mr. Mbuli, is saying goodbye, Lena, at home.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mbuli, for your lesson. We're hoping your students back at home enjoyed it, and we'll be seeing you soon, I'm sure.
Yes, exactly.
All right, thank you so much. Form 1s and Form 2s, please get closer to your screens. Up next is your Siswati lesson with Ngobile Gwebu. We will be right back after this.
Divers nome kanjani and forget what bothers you the most. On this stage, our dancers fire in their eyes come alive. They explore the fires that lay deep within with different dance moves. On this stage, they claim their space and who they are with sparkles, free, silent and storm dances. All this and more with our vibrant and beautiful presenter, Nikki. Divers Nome Kanjani Season 4 coming soon on Eswatini TV. Sibuko Semaswati.
I mean, God had to go at me a number of times before I finally swallowed this. Because we just have such a wrong mindset about what God expects out of us. And you know what religion is? Religion is what we think God expects out of us instead of us looking at what He's done for us. We have worth and value not because of what we do, but because Jesus died for us. Because we're no better than anybody else. Anything that we are that in Christ, or we're nothing at all. And I enjoy ministry so much more now. I'm so comfortable, and I love God, and I like myself, and I don't care what you think about that, but I just like myself. I spent enough years hating myself. I'm done with all that. Amen.
Did you think about what I said?
I did, and I've made my decision. I'm not going to wait for the courts to return my son to me. I'm going to go get him.
Ow, it hurts! Hey, I haven't even touched you yet. Stop being a baby. Kandimba! Get back here! Kandimba! Kandimba! Where are you?
What's with that face? You don't feel well? How did your interview go? Really bad. Well, I'd like to have a cup of coffee, please.
I want to help you out.
Your
I really
father
can't.
won't let you.
It's just that at this time, the sales of the store don't justify hiring another person, Auntie.
But if that's the issue, I could work on commission, Sarah. I already proved to you I'm a good
Look,
salesperson.
I'm really sorry, but jobs don't just pop up because people need them.
Maybe you should find someone who feels as lonely as you do. Someone who knows how to spoil you and likes it.
Usele mbukeli ekhaya ngiphinze ngikwemukele ehlelweni lakho loluthandzako lekufundza usekhaya i-home study ligama lami nginokwazi wakahle khathi samanje sibanga lesiphohlo ngobile gwebu lasavele adindlaka ngobile
asesinakwazi nje yes
ubheke ukuthi umfundzi wakho ekhaya abe afundzene kupheleni kwesifundo
lengubhekile kumfundzi ekhaya ukuthi nakuphela lesifundo abese kakhona ukubhala imisho kahle libombene kahle netinzima letakheke kahle.
Okay, siyabonga Ncobile. Sethembe ukuthi umfundzi ekhaya sovela usilungisele isifundo sakhe Ncobile ungacana nesifundo sakho.
Ngiyabonga sisi. Nguvusele mfundzi welibanga lesikhombisa nesiphohlongo ekhaya. Ngiyethemba bosovele usilinzile isifundo sakho. So kulungisile kwekubhala nekwekubhalela kulungela sona isifundo sakho. Namuhla mfundzi wami sidabe sibuka kubhalwa kwemisho kanye netinzima lesi sipheceleti ngema sentences kanye nema paragraphs kwekuthi sikubhala njani kubumbane kahle kuhlangane kahle kude kuhambelane nendzaba noma nesihloko losuke uniketwe sona. Kunemigomo ke mfundzi wami lengifuna siyibuke kanye kanye nakule kumele ukuthi ukhone kukwenda nase kuphelele sifundo sefu sanamuhla. Kwekucala mfundzi ngibhekile kwekuthi ukhone kubhala imisho lechumene kahle. Kwesibili ukhone kubhala tinhlobo temisho imisho lesinayo itinhlobo nhlobo ngiyabhekile ukuthi egcine kwalesifundo ube soyathi tinhlobo letithile temisho lesinato. Kwesithathu umfundzi ukhone kuchaza ukuthi iyini inzima nasikhuluma ngenzima sisuke sikhuluma ngani bese kwekugcina mfundzi wami ukhone ukuthuthukisa umcondvo wetinzima. Sisachubekana nesifundo sethu ke mfundzi wami ngidawucela ukuthi sicale sibuyekede kwekuthi sike senda ini ngaphambilini noma itifundweni tefu letendlulile. Tifundweni tefu letendlulile mfundzi wami sifundzile ngeliphepha lefu lekucala. Safundzisa ukuthi leliphepha leli liphepha lapho khona sibhala tindzaba letehlukahlukene. Sifundzile futhi ukuthi kubalulekile ukuthi ugcine nawe sewubhala tindzaba letihlamisako. Sabukusana kwekuthi liphepha lekucala lima kanjani. Ngiyethemba nje nawe ekhaya soyalathi ukuthi lima kanjani liphepha lekucala. Siphindze sachushisana ngebumcoka netimphawu tekubhala uma sibhala tona tindzaba. Kumphawu tefuthi kubhala sitisebenzisa kanjani nasibhala indzaba kuze kwekuthi phela indzaba yakho itolandzeleleka kahle. Namuhla ke sifundweni sethu umfundzi wami sidobe sichushisana ngekubhala imisho lebumbene kahle nekubhala tinzima letithuthukile tabumbana kahle. Ngiyathi mfundzi ekhaya uyadibuta kwekuthi ingabe yini lokubumbana lokulesikhuluma ngakho. Nasikhuluma ngekubumbana mfundzi kwemisho sisuke sikhuluma ukuthi tihlangene kahle tiyathelelana phize futhi tichumene kahle uze kuthi lo tifundzako noma lofunza lemisho noma lofunza letinzima angakhanzi kwekuthi tinhlalo noma atilandzeleleki kahle lemisho yakho noma letinzima takho. Kunana kule ngicela ukunake ke mfundzi wami esifundweni sethu sanamuhla kwekuthi tinzima takhiwa yimisho. Imisho yona yakhiwa yini? Ngemagama. Mfundzi wami utokhumbula kwekuthi uke wafunza ngemisindvo yenkhulumo yeSwatini. Ngiyethemba soyakhumbula kwekuthi kwakukhulunywa ngani nakukhulunywa ngemisindvo. Sakhuluma ngabo bongwaqa, saphindze sakhuluma ngabo bonkhamisa naba lesithi bo a, e, I, o, u. Letinhlavu temsindvo ke mfundzi siyatihlanganisa sakhe ngato emagama noma sakhe ngato umusho. Uma sibhala imisho kubhekekile ukuthi sonke isikhathi ubhale imisho leyemukelekile elulwimini lwethu njengoba singemaswati nje. Asesibuke kanye ke mfundzi wami kwekuthi nasikhuluma ngemusho sisuke sikhuluma ngani. Bese ngishito ukuthi nasikhuluma ngemusho sisuke sikhuluma ngesentence. Umusho ngemagama lamumethe umcondvo lophelele nalowemukelekako. Akusiko nje ukuthi uhlanganisa emagama kuphela. Kufuna ukuthi lamagama lasowahlanganisile akhe lokuthite lokuchumanako engcondweni yalowo lowafunza noma lokulalele. Asesibuka nje nasibonelo sethu kanye zodwa uyahamba kusasa ekuseni. Ngumusho lowo uyevakala siyabona ngemagama ahlanganisiwe mane kepha lamagama lanka asinika umcondvo lophelele nalowemukelekako kuyevakala ukuthi kutakwendekani kusasa ekseni. Zodwa uyahamba kusasa ekuseni. Utokhumbula ke mfundzi wekuthi sathi umusho uqalisa ngafeleba. Nasifunza ngetimphawu tethu tekubhala sayitsinza indzaba yokuthi sonke isikhathi na uqala ubhala umusho uqalisa ngafeleba noma luhlavu lolukhulu lelesithi i-capital letter ubese ugcina ngangci. Kumele ukuthi ukhombise ukuthi umusho wakho sewufike emaphethelweni ngekuthi ugcine ngangci lesikubita ukuthi i-full stop. Kepha kulesifundvo sethu sanamuhla sidabe sifunza ke ngetinhlobonhlobo temisho longatibhala eSwatini usatfutfukisa inzima yakho. Siyitfutfukiselani ke inzima mfundzi wami? Siyitfutfukisela kwekuthi sithela sibumba indzaba yethu kuze ukuthi igcwale likhasi. Indzaba yethu kuze ukuthi igcwale likhasi nesigamu kudzingeka ukuthi kube nemusho lebumbene kahle, kube netinzima letihlangene kahle, temukeleka kahle. Ngakho ke kumcoka ukuthi wati kwekuthi umusho siubhala kanjani. Asesibuke tinhlobo temisho letimbala lesitawukhuluma ngato namuhla lekumele utati noma nathi lesinato nje eSwatini sethu. Sinawo umusho lesiubita ngokuthi ngumusho lomelula. Lo musho lona lomelula ngunangu losuke ungakati kakhulu. Nasiubita ngelwimi lwesingisi sithi simple sentence. Umelula lo musho lona awukati noma awukashubi kakhulu. Nguwo ke lo musho lona lomfisha lekumele ukuthi ubhale ushaye khona na uvakale ukuthi uthini. Lo musho lona singabekisa ngesibonelo sethu sithi Thoko ugijime watephula. Ngiyethemba nawe mfundzi uyatibonela ukuthi mufisha lo musho netinhlavu temagama dincane kakhulu. Thoko ugijime watephula. Lo musho lona ke sithi umelula ngoba ngumusho lode emagama lamanengi, ngumusho longakati futhi kakhulu. Siphinde sibe nalolunye lihlobo nalo lesivamisile kulisebenzisa masibhala tindzaba lona selibita ukuthi ngumusho lomutse. Lo musho lona ke mfundzi wami wona udzinga kwekuthi uhlanganise imisho lemibili noma mithathu usebenzisa tihlanganiso. Kunemagama lesinawo eSwatini lesiwabita ukuthi tihlanganiso. Njalo masibhala umusho lomutse kulapho ke tihlanganiso tibese tiyavela khona. Lo musho lona ke ngesingisi siubita ngokuthi i-complex sentence. Ngiyethemba mfundzi wami uyakhona ukuhlukanisa kule misho lemibili kuthi kunana umusho lomelula lona nje lotihambela wodwana lolula bese siba nana ngilomuthe lota ukhanza ukuthi uhlanganise imisho lemibili kepha solo uchuba yona phela indzaba asesibukisane ke kanye kanye nasi sibonelo lapho khona sesisebenzise lo musho lona lotiyile noma umusho lona lomuthe. Kubalulekile ukuthi sikhulume ngetekuphepha kuleyo naleyo ndzawo. Kodwa namuhla sitawubukisisa luhlangothi lwetekuphepha emgwaqweni. Asiphindze siufunze mfundzi wami kanye kanye lo musho wethu. Kubalulekile ukuthi sikhulume ngetekuphepha kuleyo naleyo ndzawo. Kodwa namuhla sitawubukisisa luhlangothi lwetekuphepha emgwaqweni. Ngiyethemba mfundzi wami uyabona ukuthi kunemisho lehlanganisiwe lapha lemibili. Umusho wekucala siyawubona uthi kubalulekile ukuthi sikhulume ngetekuphepha. Bese kuba khona leli gama lengithite lisihlanganiso lesiye silisebenzise kuchumanisa imisho lemitse noma imisho lehlanganisiwe. Lo musho lona nje siyawubona ukuthi sewutiyile awusafana nanangilomelula noma umunye kodwa semibili imisho lehlanganisiwe yahlanganiswa ngileli gama lelithi kodwa. Sibona ngaleli gama lelithi kodwa lesilibita ukuthi lisihlanganiso kwekuthi wo lemusho lena semibili seyihlanganisiwe futhi. Leminye imisho longayisebenzisa ke mfundzi wami kungaba ngiyo imisho lekhomba kubabata lebabatako. Njengesibonelo nje mfundzi wami lesithi hawu mine umntwana nami akuphela kwakhe. Ngiyethemba uyalibona nalolu phawu lolu mfundzi wami utawukhumbula safunza ngetimphawu tekubhala. Lukhomba kona ukuthi lona lokhulumako uyababata wethukile. Hawu mine umntwana nami akuphela kwakhe. Nawo solo ngumusho lo kepha ukhomba ukuthi lona lokhulumako wethukile noma uyababata. Ungaphindze futhi usebenzise imisho lebutako. Sitawukhumbula ukuthi sathi imisho yethu kuyendeka kulesinye isikhathi ibude. La ekubuteni mfundzi wami sasho ukuthi sisebenzisa luphawu lesilibita ngokuthi i-question mark. Lolu phawu lolu ngilo lolukhomba ukuthi lo musho uyabuda. Njengalesibonelo lesithi nje magalela mfana wami ungishiya nabani. Sesiyabona ukuthi la luphawu lolukhombisa ukuthi uyabuda lona lokhulumako. Magalela mfana wami ungishiya nabani. Ngumusho lowo lokhomba kubuda. Bese sike sawubuta umusho lokhomba ini kubabada. Kuyendeka ke mfundzi wami ukuthi usayibhalile imisho yakho noma tongethi inhlobo temisho lesesikhulumile ngato kuyendeka ukuthi utisebenzise kanye kanye kude wakhe ini inzima. Sitawusebenzisa nje nangulesi uthi uyabuta umbuto siphindze sisebenzise nangulo babatako kwakha inzima. Ngithemba uyakhumbula ukuthi sitesihlokweni sethu sitawube sifunza ngemisho netinzima. La kulesibonelo sekuhlanganisiwe ke manje lemisho kuze kutobumbeka inzima lengiyo lekhulumako leseyihlanganise imisho leminyenti. Asihambe kanye kanye ke mfundzi wami siyifunze kanye kanye inzima yethu leseyihlanganise lemisho lobutako nanangulobabatako. Hawu mine umfanami akuphela kwakhe. Magalela ungishiya nabani. Langhosi wawasho lamagama tashotehla tilandzelana. Ufanele kwehluleka kutibamba webantfu. Phela magalela lo litinyo lekubulala ushayiswe imoto nemshayeli wangemi nekuma. Kunemisho ke mfundzi wami kulenzima yethu lesesihlanganisile kwakha indzaba noma kwakunika umcondvo lothide. Siyabona nje ukuthi kulenzima besikhuluma ngayo sehlanganisiwe imisho lethide yabumba yona inzima seyiyakhuluma inzima seyiyavakala ukuthi ithini. Ngiyethemba ke nawe mfundzi wami ekhaya songayibhala phela yakho inzima usebenzisa yona imisho njengoba sowusibonile nje isibonelo sethu kwekuthi ungayihlanganisa imisho ungabe uyababada kungabe uyabuta wakhe inzima letakuniketa umcondvo nangulofunza kwekuthi uthini lona lobhalako noma lona lokhulumako. Asichubeke ke mfundzi wami sibuke kanye kanye kwekuthi nayi inzima leselo sikhuluma ngayo yini inzima. Nasikhuluma ngenzima mfundzi wami sikhuluma ngemisho lehlanganisiwe yakha umcondvo munye luphelele. La kulenzima sekunemisho seyihlanganisiwe seminyenti seyakha inzima lephelele. Lenzima lena utawunaka mfundzi wami kwekuthi umcondvo phela awube munye ayisinikete umcondvo munye noma ingcikithi yinye. Inzima ima kanjani ke mfundzi wami sibuke kanye kanye. Yonke inzima kubhekeke ukuthi ibe nawo umusho longumgogodla. Inzima yonke nayibhaleke kahle kumele ibe nemusho longumgogodla. Kwesibili siyadinga ukuthi enzimeni siyibone imisho lesekelako netibonelo. Isekela ini ke lemisho isekela nangu umgogodla lo uvedile lapha kulomusho wekucala. Bese siba nawo umusho losongako kukhombisa kwekuthi inzima yakho seyifike ekugcineni. Inzima ke mfundzi wami kunake lokwekuthi kumele ibe naletimfo letintsatfu lesicetha kudisho nyalo. Awube nemusho longumgogodla kube nalosekelako netibonelo bese kuba nemusho losongako. Ngiyethemba uyanaka ukuthi minengi lemisho lekumele ivele enzimeni yakho. Lokumcoka ke ngenzima mfundzi wami kumele kwekuthi ingemi ndzawonye. Njalo nakubhalwa indzaba kumele indzaba yakho yente njani ithuthuke. Ingemi ndzawonye indzaba yakho kuze ithuthuke ithuthukiswa yini nguleti nzima lesikhuluma ngato namuhla. Inzima ngenzima kumele ibe nalesihloko musho njengoba sesishito lesihloko musho ngulomusho lesiubita ukuthi uyinhloko nguwo ke lothwala umcondvo noma ingcikithi. Asesibuke kanye kanye nasi sihloko na inzima yethu lenesihloko lesithi tingoti temgwaqo. Kungenteka mhlambe unikiwe sihloko ukuthi bhala ngetingoti temgwaqo. Sekumele ukuthi uthuthukise indzaba yakho ngetinzima. Wenda njani ke utawusiveta kanjani isihloko musho sakho utayiveta kanjani imisho lelekelelako iphindze ibe netibonelo. Utawube sewusonga njani vele ekugcineni. Asifunze kanye kanye ke mfundzi wami nayi inzima yethu lelandzelako lekhuluma ngetingoti temgwaqo. Tingoti temgwaqo tenteka onke malanga ngesizatfu sekuthi akubanjiswana. Tingoti temgwaqo tenteka onke malanga ngesizatfu sekuthi akubanjiswana. Lo musho lo mfundzi wami lengicetha kuufunza lolo lakucaleni ngiwo lesiubita ngekuthi sihloko musho. Uyaveta lo musho uvete ingcikithi uvete umcondvo walota ukhuluma ngako imisho letawulandzela itabe seyisekela nangu umcondvo losowuvetile. Umcondvo lovelako lana kuvela kwekuthi tingoti tibangwa yini kuthi akubanjiswana. Lokusho ukuthi ngisachubeka nekufundza lenzima kufuna ngitfo akubanjiswana kanjani. Ngoba sekuvelile lapha ekucaleni yavela ingcikithi noma wavela umcondvo ukuthi tingoti tibangwa ukuthi akubanjiswana. Imisho yonke ke letawulandzela sekufuna isekele lengcikithi isekele lomcondvo akubanjiswana kanjani. Asifunze ke mfundzi wami sichubeke sibone ke manje nayi imisho lesekela nayi ingcikithi. Bashayeli abahloniphani emigwaqweni kangangobe lapho kufanele beme khona ngoba luphawu luthi abeme abatihluphi inhlobo. sesiyawubona umusho losekela ukuthi akubanjiswana kanjani. Uyaveta lo musho ukuthi bashayeli abahloniphani emigwaqweni. Kangangobe lapho kufanele beme khona luphawu luthi abeme abatihluphi. Lokho ke kubanga ukuthi timoto bese tiyashayisana. Sekuvela sibonelo ke manje lesisekela lo musho lo la ngehla ukuthi timoto kuze tishayisane tibanga abashayeli labangahloniphi. Kanjalo nalabahamba phasi nabo abatinaki timphawu temgwaco kude batoshayelisa kahle labachuba timoto. Ngiyethemba mfundzi wami solo uyabona ukuthi yonke lemisho lesolo ngiyifunza igcizelela lokuthi akubanjiswana kanjani. Igcizelela lesihloko musho lesilapha ekuqaleni sekuthi kulamalanga akubanjiswana. Lokumcoka ke ukuthi bashayeli betimoto nalabahamba ngetinyawo babambisane. Sengumusho lona lo songako sewuyasonga ke lo musho ukuthi imvo lemcoka lengacedza konke lokungabambisani, lengacedza konke lokungahloniphani kuthi kube nani kube nekubambisana. Yinzima ke mfundzi wami lena iphelele inesihloko musho iphindze futhi inemisho lesekela lesihloko musho bese iba nemusho losongako kwekuthi yini lengasita noma lengalekelela ukuthi kugcine kubanjiswene kude sigweme naku kushayisana kwetimoto. Ngiyethemba mfundzi wami sisahamba kanye kusisabuka sona inzima yethu yekucala lesesiyibukile. Sesishito ukuthi lo musho ke lo lesisihloko musho awuyethwale phela lenzima yonke. Kuze kuthi konke lokulandzelako bese sekuyasekela kusekele lesihloko musho. Umusho logcinile nawo siubonile sibukisana kanye nawe kuthi wona so usonga lenzima. Njengakule yethu nje inzima mfundzi ngiyethemba unakile kwekuthi bashayeli betimoto kanye nebamfu labahamba ngetinyawo kuthi ngababambisane. Nase ubhala lenye inzima ke mfundzi wami kanjalo kufanele phela ikhulume ngani ngalomunye umcondvo. Inzima yakho letawulandzela ayisale ikhuluma ngalomunye umcondvo ingasakhulumi ngekungabambisani. Tonke tinzima kufanele tikhulise umcondvo waleyo ndzaba tiniketelane lokumcoka ngetinzima ukuthi tiniketelane tihlangane kahle ngekusebentisa emagama lathide. Lamagama langa akangahlanganisi noma akahlanganise letinzima aphindze ahlanganise nani nemicondvo kuphela ngingagcini ehlanganisa tinzima kuphela kepha kuhlangane nani nalemicondvo mfundzi wami ekhaya. Asesibuke inzima yethu yesibili lekhomba ukuthi umcondvo kenyalo sewehlukile lona lesitabe sikhuluma ngawo. Lokunye lokucedza abantu emgwaqweni kwethwala linani lelingetulu kwalelifanele lethwalwe. Naso sihloko musho lesilandzelako enzimeni yethu yesibili siyaveta kwekuthi lokunye lokubanga tingoti kwethwala linani lelingetulu kwalelifanele lwethwalwe. Ngale ekuqaleni siuvetile umcondvo ukuthi kude kubambisana. Kepha nyalo enzimeni yethu yesibili sekuyavela kwekuthi nalokwethwala linani lelingetulu kuyadibanga tingoti. So uyachubeka ke uyasekela umbhali usekela inzima takhe uyasekela ukuthi nguleyo naleyo moto inesisindvo lekufanele isethwale ngako kuyethwalisa lokungetulu kungadala lenkulu ingoti. Uyachubeka uthi kuyimvama ukuthi emabhasi nemakhumbi ethwale bantfu bate bengce kakhulu kulelo nani lelifanele. Lokusimanga ukuthi nabo bagibeli bayanikela ngetimpilo tabo babinze noma babona ukuthi kuyonakala. Ngiyethemba ke mfundzi wami unakile lapha kulesihloko musho sekucala kwekuthi lokucedza bantfu kwethwala linani lelingetulu. Kani ngale kulenzima yethu yekucala sivete kwekuthi esihloko mishweni sethu umcondvo lokhona uvetiwe kwekuthi bashayeli ababambisani nalabo labahamba ngetinyawo. Nase kuvela ukuthi kwethwala kwelinani lelingetulu sekuyasekeleka ukuthi lokho kwenteka kanjani. Phindze so uvelile umusho losongako wathi lokusimanga nabo bagibeli bayanikela nje ngetimpilo tabo bangabe basakhuluma noma babona ukuthi kuyonakala. Kulenzima yesibili ke mfundzi wami lesibuya kuyo ngiyethemba uyanaka ukuthi solo ayike menza wonye. iyachubeka lendzaba solo kuchazwa ini tona tingoti ukuthi tibangwa yini. Lokumcoka ke mfundzi wami lokumele unake tinzima atiniketelane phela. Lokuvele ekucaleni kusekeleke kahle. Kuveleke nalesihloko musho lesisishito nalomusho lonjani losongako mfundzi wami. Asesibuke ke mfundzi wami lesikufundzile ke namuhla esifundweni sethu lokumcoka ngcizelele kwekuthi yini na ile mcoka lekumele uyinake sonke isikhathi nangabe ubhala itinzima noma imisho yakho. Sifundzile ke mfundzi wekuthi umusho wakhiwa ngemagama lahlanganisiwe kepha lakakha ini umcondvo lophelele. Sathi inzima yona yakhiwa imusho lebumbene yathi nqusha. Sasikhuluma indzaba lemcoka kakhulu kwekuthi le misho enzimeni kubhekeke ukuthi ihleleke ibukede liphuzu noma umcondvo munye. Ngicela ukunake lokhu mfundzi wami kuze kubede ini kudlobhadloba. Njalo nje enzimeni buketa liphuzu noma umcondvo. Sakhuluma indzaba ke lenye lemcoka yekuhlangana kwetinzima nekuniketelana kute kusite na ulofunza indzaba yakho akhone kuyilandzela kahle ngaphandle kwekudideka. Kuze kubhaleke indzaba lengiyo lelandzeleka kahle mfundzi wami kuyadzingeka kwekuthi angadideki lona loyifundzako akhone kuyilandzela kahle umusho yakho ayihlangane kahle usebenzise timphawu tekubhala kahle uphindze futhi netinzima takho utibumbe tibe ngileto letiniketelana kahle mfundzi wami. Ngiyethemba usithokotele isifundvo sethu sanamuhla mfundzi ekhaya
kanye naye Siphiwe Vaz siyabuya khona manje.
It is important every now and then to check, am I still in the receiving hand of God, or am I in the receiving hand of the lies from the enemy?
Salvation is free because Christ paid for everything, and that's true. But discipleship will cost you everything.
Love each other as if your life depends on it.
As a canvas reflects the nature of a personality or an artist, so creation teaches us about who God is.
We are made great by becoming small. We are exalted when we're humble.
At it again, once again, what it is, it's the biggest, the dopest, the freshest. The biggest, the dopest, the freshest, the sickest. It's the illest. Illest. It's the biggest, the dopest, the freshest, the sickest, the illest. Entertainment show on your TV screens is TBD. Welcome to it, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Beatdown. Yo, 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 yeah, yeah.
Hi guys, this is Lyra and you're watching The Beatdown.
Watch the brightest talent search in the land on Eswatini TV every Sunday at 5 p.m. The Spotlight. Put me on.
Nguvusele mbukeli ekhaya ngiphinze ngikwemukele ehlelweni lakho loluthandako lekufundza usekhaya i-home study ligama lami nginokwazi ngwakadlamini kanti kulesikhathi samanje sitawufunza siswati selibanga lelishumi kanye naye Siphiwe Vazi losavele anami etindlini tekusakata. Unjani namhla Siphiwe?
Ngiyaphila nokwazi njani wena?
Ngiyaphila nami Siphiwe. Namhla sidabe sifunza ngetinciphiso netikhuliso.
Yebo.
Ubheke umfundzi wakho ekhaya ukuthi abe afundzene kupheleni kwalesifundvo.
Ngibheke ukuthi aconnect akhati khuliso kanjalo aconnect akhani lantolo etinciphiso.
Okay Siphiwe, sethembe umfundzi wakho ekhaya sawuvele usimele isifundvo sakho, ngicela ungaqala naso sifundvo.
Ngiyakubingelela mfundzi ekhaya mfundzi welibanga lelishumi. Sifundvo sethu salamuhla seluhlelo lwesiswati lolusephepheni lesibili. Sichubeka nawo ke emabito lakhiwa asuselwa kulamanye emabito. Lamuhla sitawubuka kwakhiwa kwetinciphiso nekwakhiwa kwetikhuliso. Thishela wakho nguye Siphiwe Sithole Vazi. Sitocala sibuka ngebumcoka bekufundza luhlelo kwekuthi ingabe silufunzelani vele luhlelo. Lokusita kuthi wati kwekuthi kunemagama lehlukahlukene elulwimini lwesiswati. Nanawo lawo magama kunendlela lakhiwa ngayo. Lokunye kukusita noma kukuhlomisa ekusebenziseni kahle ligama ngalinye emshweni. Nekwati phela inzima lelidlalako lelo gama. Lokunye kukhulisa lwati lwakho lwelulwimi lwesiswati ekulukhulumeni nasekulubhaleni. Sichubeke mfundzi sibuke imigomo yesifundvo setfu. Njengoba ngivedile ukuthi sitofundza ngetinciphiso netikhuliso. Ngibhekile ukuthi ekupheleni kwalesifundvo ukhone kwakha tinciphiso. Ukhone futhi nekuphawula ngetingucuko letiba khona nakwakhiwa tinciphiso. Futhi ukhone kuchaza lokukhonjwa tinciphiso. Kanjalo ukhone nekwakha tikhuliso uphindze uchaze lokukhonjwa tikhuliso. Singakachubeki noma singakabuki ngalokwakhiwa kwetinciphiso netikhuliso. Asesibuyekete lesikufunzile esifundweni lesengcile selihlelo lapho khona besakha emabito lasuselwa kulamanye emabito. Siwakhile ke emabito ngco. Emabito ngco leswakhile khomba bantfu. Lokusho ukuthi kube ngemagama ebantfu. Emagama lesibita ngawo bantfu. Sisebenzisile ke takhi letehlukene uma sakha emabito ngco njengoba utibona nati letibhalwe ngembala lobofu. Kube ngito takhi lesisebenzisa uma sakha emabito ngco. Ukhumbule phela ukuthi lapha besisusela emabitweni. Uma sithi nje lomvelo sisusele ebitweni lelithi imvelo. Uma sithi nabo Musa sisusele ebitweni lelithi Musa. Musa ulibito ngco ngekwakhe. Nali ke lelinye lelithi sifiso. Naye sifiso libito ngco nalo lakhiwe lisuselwa ebitweni. Lapha ke kude sakhi lesibonakalako lesisebenzisile. Kodwa nje sisebenzisele libito njengoba belinjalo lesikwendile sehlise livi. Sisusele ebitweni lithi sifiso. Sakha libito ngco lelithi sifiso. Maso uthi sifiso seligama lemuntu. Siphinzeke sakha nemabito mvama. Emabito mvama yini mfundzi ngithemba ukuthi usawakhumbula. Ngulamabito lakhiwa asuselwa kulamanye emabito ngokuthi nje ushintshe sicalo salelo bito. Ungalisusa libito esigabeni leside njenganali nje lithi umuntu. Ulise kulesinye isigaba lapha nje sengilise kusigaba 4 ngathi sindfu. Ngisebenzisa isicalo sakusigaba 4. Ungaphinze ulise kulesinye isigaba naku nje ngisebenzisa isicalo sasigaba 6 ngathi lundvu. Ngaphinze ngasebenzisa isicalo sakusigaba 7 ngathi bundvu. Emabito mvama uwakha ngekuthi ushintsha nje leticalo. Asale singena ke mfundzi nyalo etinciphisweni. Ingabe siyini sinciphiso? Sinciphiso ngilolunye ihlobo lwemabito lakhiwa asuselwa kulamanye emabito. Wona ke sikakhomba buncane bendvo. Sinciphiso sikhomba indvo lencane. Asesibuke nati tibonelo letilandzelako lapho khona sisebenzise khona tinciphiso. Sibonelo sekucala sithi benele uvete sandlana sakhe efastelweni. Lo sandlana mfundzi ngiso sinciphiso. Uma sithi make uthenge sikhwanyana lesimhlophe edolobheni. Libito lelithi sikhwanyana sinciphiso khomba ukuthi lesikhwama sincane. Kanjalo noma sewuthi umfudlana wangakithi ugcwele. Lelibito lelithi umfudlana selesinciphiso likhomba umfula lomncane. Siyachubeka mfundzi asesibuke ke ukuthi ingabe vele letinciphiso sidakha kanjani. Tinciphiso khumbula phela ukuthi sitheni sisusela emabitweni uma sakha sinciphiso. Ngako ke lelibito losusele kulo kumele ukuthi latiwe. Libe sebaleni nje lelibito losusela kulo. Asesiphinze sibuyele kule tibonelo tethu lesitibonile ngale. Sithole sinciphiso lesithi sandlana. Lesinciphiso sethu susele ebitweni lelithi sandla. Nalo libito liyatiwa lisebaleni sandla. Sinciphiso sithi sikhwanyana. Libito lesusele kulo lithi sikhwama. Nalo liyatiwa lisebaleni. Sinciphiso sithi umfudlana. Sisusele ebitweni lelithi umfula. Ngithemba ukuthi uyakunaka ke konke ke lokho mfundzi kwekuthi leli bito lesusela kulo kumele ukuthi latiwe. Nako ke lokunye losekuvela ngaso sinciphiso kwekuthi sinciphiso sibonakala ngesijobelelo saso lesingu ana. Nayo lenye indlela yekubamba isinciphiso ngaphandle nje kwekuthi isinciphiso sikhomba info lencane isinciphiso sibonakala ngalesijobelelo lesingu ana uyabona nje nakule tibonelo tethu masithi sandlana ukhona ana masithi sikhwanyana ukhona ana noma sithi umfudlana ukhona ana mfundzi sisitene sinciphiso sisakha ngekusebenzisa libito nalo libito lethu lithi sandla sibonelo leso lelibito silihlanganisa nesijobelelo sesinciphiso sijobelelo sesinciphiso singubani singu ana kuze kutophuma ini kuze kutophuma sinciphiso sinciphiso sethu lesiphumile sisiteni sisite sandlana ngiyethemba uyabona mawuthi sandla kugcina ngangamisa a nangamisa a sitsite sitojobelela ana naye lo ana kunangamisa a lapho lokusho ukuthi bonkamisa sebatolandzelana manje kunetinguquko ke leti tokwendeka uma kwakhiwa tinciphiso ngoba phela saveta uma sethula liphepha lethu kwekuthi bonkamisa akukameli ukuthi balandzelane egameni lelinye lesiswati nayi nje inguquko yekucala nasakha tinciphiso siyamsusa ngamisa a e noma i lo sekugcineni kwelibito lo ngamisa nangabe usekugcineni kwelibito ngoba vele lelibito ligcina ngangamisa nangabe ligcina ngangamisa a e noma i sitamsusa loyo ngamisa loyo sijobelele ana khumbula phela ukuthi ana usijobelelo sesinciphiso uma ubuka nje kule tibonelo tethu letilandzelako sibonelo sekucala sithi sandla nanglo a logcinile sithite siyamsusa sijobelela ana sibonelo sesibili sithi litshe kugcina ngamisa e siyamsusa sijobelela ana sibonelo sesithathu sithi livi sithite siyamsusa ngamisa logcinile nango i sijobelela ana kumcoka ukuthi utinake inguquko bakhona kwa tinciphiso inguquko yesibili una inguquko yengwacatisa lo munye soyatibuta ukuthi ingabe kungwacatisa yini kungwacatisa kuguqula ngamisa abe ngwaca bongamisa ke lesibangwacatisako la uma sakha tinciphiso ngamisa o noma ngamisa u nangabe loyo ngamisa loyo usekugcineni kwelibito sitomgwacatisa abe ngusangamisa wo lo shothi sitomgwacatisa abe ngunangwaca lokucishe afane naye lo ngamisa lo ngu u uma umkhipha nje wo uyeva ukuthi wo uphose afane naye lo u kungako ke sitomgwacatisa abe nguye lowo sibese ke egcineni sijobelela lo ana kumbula phela ukuthi sinciphiso sibonakala ngaana uma sibuka nje tibonelo tilandzelako libito lethu lithi umnyango kugcina ngamisa o sitelo ngamisa o sitamgwaqatisa sitamgucula abe ngusangamisa wo nako ke lelo kwendekile lowo ngiyethemba ukuthi soyambona ukuthi uvelaphi lo o ngamisa onene simgucule waba ngilo sangamisa wo kanjalo nakuleli bito lethi indlu kugcina ngangamisa o siyamgwaqatisa ke uba ngusangamisa wo khumbula lo ana soyakhona kumchaza ukuthi ana usijobelelo sesinciphiso noko ke mfundzi akhona emabito la ngamngwacatisi lo ngamisa o noma u makasegcineni kwelibito njenganali nje libito lethu lelithi silevu kugcina ngamisa u kodwa maso wakha sinciphiso utothi silevana lapho angeke umgwacatise lo ngamisa u umsusa inguquko lelandzelako mfundzi inguquko yekwekuthi nzebembili aguquke abe ngulwangeni siye sikubide ukuthi kulwanganisa ke lokho ndzebembili ukucuka uba ngulwangeni ngumuphi ke lo ndzebembili lokucukako ngundzebembili lo selungeni lekugcina kuleli bito lesusela kulo sithi siyamgucula lo ndzebembili abe ngulwangeni bese lonkhamisa lokugcinile kulelo bito uyesuswa kujotshelelwe ana dibonelo tetfonato sedivele tikhona uma sithi sikhwama nangu lo ndzebembili lesimshoko nangu lobhalwe ngembala lobovu ungdzebembili sithi siyamgucula ke siyamlwanganisa uba ngunangulwangeni lo ngunye nangu nye shothi ndzebembili ukucuka uba ngulwangeni nye sesi jobelela ke lo ana no nasi sibonelo silandzelako futhi inthaba ndzebembili ukucuka uba ngulwangeni je ngethemba sokubambile lokho mfundzi noma uthi liphepha ndzebembili ukucuka abe ngulwangeni she utongendela ke naku ke kwakakho utonciphisa lamabito lalandzelako ukhumbule ukuthi lo ndzebembili ngibhekile ukuthi agucuke abe ngulwangeni ndzebembili lo selungeni lekugcina sikipa sigubhu impompi tinsimbi utonginciphisela ke lamabito lango utonginakela ke nalamani langawulandzeli lo mthetho lo wekugucula ndzebembili abe ngilwangeni njenganali nje lithi inyama mawusho inyama lencane utothi inyamana sithatha ingucuko lelandzelako nyalo sekugucuka ngwacansinini lo selungeni lekugcina ugucuka naye uba ngulwangeni masibuya itibonelo entetfu incwadzi kwacansinini ngilotse utogucuka abe ngilwangeni je kungako utothi incwajana noma ke uthi luthi nangusinini th ugucuka uba ngulwangeni she kungako utothi lushana noma uthi ingane nangusinini ne ugucuka uba ngilwangeni nye inkhanyana utanginciphisela ke nawa akho mfundzi ukhumbule ukuthi ensinini lo selungeni lekugcina kumele ukuthi agucuke abe ngulwangeni utanginakela ke futhi ukuthi kunalamanye ke la ngamguculilo nsinini ukuthi abe ngilwangeni njenganali nje sibati masho sibati lesincane utothi sibatana ingucuko lelandzelako kwekuthi ngwaca le lo selungeni lekugcina naye siye simsuse sisebenzise ngwaca le esikhundleni sakhe sithi siyamsusa lo ngwaca le sisebenzise le esikhundleni sakhe asesibukele tibonelo etilandzelako indlela nangu lo le lengikhuluma ngaye uselungeni lekugcina sitestamsusa lo le sisebenzise le esikhundleni sakhe kungako sithi indledlana noma uthi sikhala sithe siyamsusa lo ngwacala sisebenzise le kungako sithi sikhadlana noma uthi umthwalo siyamsusa lo ngwacala sebenzise le unakekela ukuthi sekuphinze kwenteka nayo ingucuko nayi ngikhamisa o siyamgwacatisa uba ngusangamisa wo sike sakuveta lokho ukuthi nangabe libito ligcina ngangikhamisa o noma u uye angwacatiswe abe ngisangamisa wo uyakunaka mfundzi konke lokudinga ingucuko lokwendekako utawuphinze ke unginakele emabito langawulandzeli lo mthetho lo njenganali nje lelithi libhodlela kunale elungeni lekugcina mawunciphisa lapha utothi libhodlelana angeke uthi libhodledlana akusakhulumi mawusho njalo ingucuko lelandzelako mfundzi wekuthi nangabe libito lakho lina sangambisawo elungeni lekugcina alandzelwa ngamisa o noma ngamisa u. Lapho angeke ke simgwacatise lo ngamisa njengoba sike sakuveta ngaphambili. Kodwa ke sitamsusa ngoba phela sowuvele ukhona lo sangamisa wo. Sitelo ngwacatisa ngamisa o noma ngamisa u sesimgucule abe ngisangamisa wo. Lapha sowuvele ukhona lo sangamisa wo. Lokushothi sekude ke sidingo sekungwaqatisa lo ngamisa o noma u. Nathi nje tibonelo tetfu. Mawuthi lunyawo ukhona ngamisa o usekugcineni. Lelibito lethu kulelunga legcina liyamkhomba lo sangamisa wo. Lokusho ukuthi ke lo o siyamsusa sidojobelela nje ana ngoba vele lo wu bekakhona. Noma ungathi emahewu uyabona ukuthi ukhona vele lo wu lo sangamisa. Lokusho ukuthi sekude sidingo sesimgwacatise lo u. Sitomsusa ke sijobelele ana. Sesibuka ke nyalo imicondvo lekhonjwa dinciphiso kwekuthi dinciphiso dingakhomba miphi imicondvo. Sithe sinciphiso sikhomba buncane benvo. Lo buncane benvo singabehlukanisa kanye ndana noma singachaza kanye ndana. Kungakhomba info lencane ngekwakhiwa. Uma uthi nje indlwana usuke usho indlu lencane ngekwakhiwa. Yakhiwe yaba incane lendlu kungawustothi yindlwana. Sakhiwe saba sincane lesikhwama kungako stothi sikhwanyana. Singaphindze sikhombe info lencane ngelinani. Uma sithi nje imbushana usho info lencane ngelinani lempuphu incane. Uma uthi indvodzana nyalo ke sesikhomba info lencane ngekutalwa. Indvodzana phela incane kunendvodza. Lendvodzana ngumfana walendvodza. Indvodzana incane ngekutalwa. Kanjalo ne umuntu umfana naye mncane ngekutalwa umntwana. Nalo phela lelibito lelisi umfana yemfunzi lincishisiwe. Sinciphise sisusela ebitweni lelithi umuntu. Kanjalo ke singaphindze sikhombe kwedzelela. Uma sithi nje lichegwana sisuke sedzelela kude umuntu leka ngavuma kubitwa ngelichegwana. Ngaphindze kukhombe kunciphisa kakhulu. Bekuvele kuncishisiwe kodwa nyalo sekuphindze kuyancishiswa. Ngekujobelela anyana. Masithi nje umthwanyana sesinciphisile lokhu bekuvele kuncishisiwe. Kumbule phela ukuthi umthwanyana sisusele lapha nje kunasasinciphiso lesithi umthwana. Ngethemba ukubambe konke ke ngetinciphiso mfundzi. Nyalo singena etikhulisweni. Asesibuke umehluko lokhona la kulamabito ethu. Lunyawana, lunyawokati. Sihlahlana, sihlahlakati. Ngethemba ukuthi uyanaka ukuthi ehlukene lamabito. Mawuthi lunyawana usho lokunye. Mawuthi lunyawokati usho lokunye. Lamabito ke lana lesijobelelo lesingu ana. Sihlahlana lunyawana. Wona sesifunzile ngawuthi atinciphiso akhomba buncane benvo. Kodwa ke nala sesithi lunyawokati noma sihlahlakati. Nyalo sesikhomba info lenkulu. Ayisiyo incane lendvo lesikhombako. Sesikhomba info lenkulu. Siyini ke sinciphiso? Libito lelakhiwa lisuselwa kulelinye libito. Kukhomba bukhulu benvo. Sinciphiso sikhomba bukhulu benvo. Utawunaka ke mfundzi kwekuthi njengoba sesivetile kwekuthi naso sinciphiso sisuselwa sikhuliso sisuselwa ebitweni. Lesikhuliso sethu ke sitosebenzisa sijobelelo lesingati. Uma sakha sikhuliso kuba bete dingucuko. Dingucuko letendekako. Kuphela nje silithatha njengoba linjalo lelibito, silisebenzisa njengoba linjalo. Sijobelele lokati kuze sitawukhomba bukhulu benvo. Njengoba ubona kule dibonelo tetfu lunyawo simhlanganisa nakati kuphuma lunyawo kati kude tingucuko letentekile. Kanjalo sihlahla simhlanganisa nakati kuphuma sihlahlakati kude tingucuko letentekile ngaphandle kwemcondvo wetfu ukuthi sesikhomba bukhulu bendvo. Ingabe sifunze ngani ke lamuhla mfundzi wami ekhaya welibanga lelishumi? Sifunzile ngetinciphiso netikhuliso. Ngithemba ukuthi usakhumbula ukuthi isinciphiso sikhomba bukhulu bendvo. Sisebenzisa sijobelelo lesingu-ana. Uyatinaka ke netingucuko letendekako uma sinciphisa emabito. Saveta ukuthi isikhuliso sona sikhomba bukhulu bendvo. Sona sikhuliso sisebenzisa sijobelelo lesingu-kati. Mfundzi, esolveni setfu lesilandzelako selihlelo sitawubuka emabito lakhomba bulili sikati nalawo laphinza ticu. Into bekungakenti kahle nangabe anguniketa umsebenti. Naku nje kwekugcina thatha na ngumsebenti mfundzi. Umbuto wekucala uthi nciphisa. Bofundzisisa mfundzi, nciphisa lamabito lalandzelako. Ukhumbule phela tingucuko letendekako mawunciphisa emabito. Lekucala lithi sikhatsi, lesibili lithi umlomo, lesithathu lithi ludzaka, kulandzelele lithi imali. Uyawanciphisa onke lamabito. Sebenzise lwati losolutfolile phela mfundzi. Umbuto wesibili utangibhalela umusho lonesinciphiso lesisuselwe ebitweni lelinandzebembili elungeni lekugcina. Nako lokho sikwendile mfundzi. Ngibhalele kahle umusho ukhumbule timpawu tekubhala. Umbuto wekugcina utangihlahlelela. Ekuhlahleleni wehlukanisa takhi tonke letikhona ngekulandzelana kwato utichaze. Libito lekucala noma angithi vele libito lekucala lotalihlahlela lithi invodzana. Emamaki mathathu lenguniketa wona. Lokusho ukuthi takhi tetfu tihlongota kuletintsatfu. Lesibili lithi sikhwama kati. Emamaki mathathu shothi takhi tihlongota kuletintsatfu. Mfundzi, sifundvo setfu sisibeka lapho lamuhla.
Sibonga kakhulu Siphiwe sifundvo sakho besimnanzi impela. Sithembe ukuthi umfundzi ekhaya usithokotele sesitawubona netfundweni letlandzelako.
Yebo nokwazi kunjalo.
Siyabonga kakhulu mfundzi welibanga lelishumi. Ungabe usayandzawo sifundvo sakho lesilandzelako yi-English language kanye naye futhi mnisi siyabuya khona manje.
Yekuthetsa i-HIV kanye namalale fever.
Kubika Sibusiso Ngubane anambongwa Dube kacoma indaba kalavumisa.
Government of Eswatini TV ngilithi ngikule nginambongwa Dube. Sithemba bani.
The change in technology, out-of-home digital media is designed to grab the attention of people who are always on the go. You can now watch your favorite show, Usile Breakfast Show and Dinzaba at 7 on your favorite YouTube channel.
It's simple. You can stream these shows by following these quick, easy steps. Number 1, open YouTube. Number 2, search for Eswatini TV and click on Eswatini TV. Number 3, after you had entered on Eswatini TV, look for Dinzaba or KPS. And while you at it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell button to get notifications of our video uploads and streams. And lastly, enjoy the stream. Stay home and watch Eswatini TV. Stay safe.
TV license pay and win competition. Fabulous prizes up for grabs. Don't miss out on the TV license pay and win competition. The competition will run from the 30th of September to 10th November 2020. Prizes include set-top boxes, a TV set, DSTV decoders, cash and IT analysis for a winning business. To enter the competition by the Times of Eswatini, cut out the filled in strip and drop it off at any of the Times offices or upload cut out to https://tblcom.jelele.com. The competition is open to individuals 18 years and older and businesses too. Entrants must be in possession of devices which are capable of communication or transmitting or recording TV signals. The more the entries meet, the higher the chances of winning. Terms and conditions apply.
A very, very warm welcome back to Home Study on Eswatini TV. This is the time for the Form 4s, and it's the second lesson for the Form 4s, and they're doing English language with Futhi Mnisi, who is already with me in the studio. My name is Nogwazi Dlamini. How are you today, Futhi?
I'm fine, my dear. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Today we're responding to questions. Well, the topic is responding to questions.
Yes, to comprehension questions.
All right. What are you expecting your Form 4s to have learned by the end of the lesson?
Thank you so much, Nogwazi, though it's very hot. But I'm expecting my learner at home to be able to know and hopefully describe the type of comprehension questions that we have, of course, and definitely we are going to read the passage which we did the last time, which is titled, yes, The Deserted House. Yes. And of course, my dear learner, we should be able to answer questions based on this particular passage.
All right, thank you so much for that, Futhi. Form 4s, I hope you are ready for your lesson. And of course, a reminder, Form 4s, that we are live right now on YouTube and on Facebook. If you have any questions, Form 4s, please feel free to use the WhatsApp number. Futhi, you may please begin with your lesson.
Okay. Thank you so much again. Welcome, my dear learner at home right now. Probably before we can get into the different type of questions that we have in comprehensions, I'd like us to review, our previous lesson. What is the reason for us to describe? Okay, remember we said when we describe, we're actually painting a mental picture with weight. So I want that to stay with us, my dear learner, so that we know that you don't just write anything, but you really need to pay attention. Am I using the nouns? Am I using the strong verbs? Am I using adjectives? Am I using adverbs? That is for effect. And then of course, my dear learner, now let us move on to today's lesson. Now, we know that when we read a passage, we need to read it for understanding. Okay, now, how do we read a passage for understanding? For example, we need to read the title because it needs to make sense in us first before we can actually go through. What I'm trying to say, my dear learner, is that the writer has a habit of giving us a clue on the title of the passage that you are going to read. Okay, and then as you read, it is imperative that you visualize what you are reading. What is to visualize? This is exactly what you are doing when you are describing. Can you envision? Are you able to think about what you are reading? How do we visualize what we are reading? We have to ask WH questions, my dear learner. By WH questions, for example, you'd be asking, oh fine, I'm reading this passage. Now, what is this passage about? Who is this passage written for, and what is the intention of the writer when writing this particular passage? And eventually, my dear, as to how is the intention actually put across. This is actually, because we know that for every passage, the writer has an intention to put across. And then as you are reading a passage now, we are going to be doing that shortly, you need to go through the questions and underline key words or ideas. Remember, you are reading a passage. What is the main idea behind this passage? And then we move on, my dear learner. Now we understand the main idea, so we are going to just check, kind of like go through the questions which are based on the passage to make sure that we actually, we can link the two. And as we go through those particular questions, I am saying it is important that we underline keywords or ideas. Why are we doing so? They will actually help us in responding to the questions that we are supposed to answer. So I'm sure by now you understand. Like I said, we are reading The Deserted House, but please envision, please visualize, have it in you that, okay, what is this passage about? For you, probably it's going to be easy, my dear learner at home, because we actually discussed this this passage the other time. But hey, for the benefit of the one who was not here the other time, we are going to go through the passage together again. All right, now, so before again we get into the questions, remember we have said our topic is responding to questions. We are responding to questions. So one may be wondering as to, are there any particular questions that we have? I'm going to take you through just a few, my dear learner at home today. These are not all the comprehension questions, but we'll just cover some which are, in a way, they're kind of like a base on what we need to know when we answer questions. So what kind of questions then do we come across, especially in comprehension questions? We have what is called contextual or factual questions. Everything is in context. Everything is in the passage. Remember that. So if it is a factual question, what kind of a question is it? Chances are it's going to say, pick a word or a phrase. Everything, like I've said, it is in the passage, and we are going to see this soon, my dear learner. So we have contextual or factual questions. We also have questions which in the comprehension, which are going to require a list or an inventory of something. So we need to know, if it is a list, how do we structure that, my dear learner at home? For example, list 3 things that show that the environment was dirty. This one is based on the passage that we are actually going to be reading. Let me just go further. 3 things, all right, that shows. Now, if you can look at this passage to answer this question, what are these 3 things? Probably in the next paragraph. Now, we are just going to list only 2 instead of 3. Now, what are we saying? It was crisp packets, then comma, and cans. That is what I wanted us to see, my dear learner, that when we are saying we are listing, we are going to put them, you are going to write them, and then there's going to be a comma, then another word, then a comma, until all probably the words that you are supposed to list, okay, have actually been identified. In this case, we are saying we are supposed to list 3, but you managed to just come up with 2. I'm sure you will get, now it is in you to get there, the 3rd one, okay, because there is another one in the passage which we are going to see shortly. Let me go back. We are saying we have contextual questions that are going to require us to pick a word. We also have questions which are going to require a list of some sort. And I'm saying once it's a list, in just that one word, that one space to answer, remember to just list them, and then you use a comma, to actually identify all 3 probably things or ideas or anything that the question may actually ask you. We also, my dear learner, have questions, they are language based on language usage. These questions are asked in context. What does in context mean? Okay, now we have to look at words around what we have been given, and then try to think about it, try to infer, try to draw a conclusion of some sort. Now, if this is what it says, now what is it? This is the word that I'm going to pick now, but the word surrounding it, exactly what is it that actually is the meaning of this? All right, looking at the other words which are nearby. For example, they may say using your own words or give reasons for. Now, if you are using your own words, my dear learner, it means the writer is saying you are not going. Remember, the first one said pick a word, which means it is in the passage, of course. Even if it's using your own words, okay, you are going to be given a word. You are going to be given probably a phrase. And then they say, use your own words to interpret this. It's an interpretative question of some sort. So you are going to look at this word, and then actually, if I'm using it, if I'm putting it in my own words, putting it in your own words, my dear, does not actually mean you are changing the meaning. No, we are not changing the meaning. We are going to use our own words to write actually what is actually, we are going to use our own words, but we are not going to change the meaning of the word or of the phrase that we are given at this particular point in time. But the way that you are phrasing the response, it shouldn't be like you simply lifted from the passage, my dear learner, at home. And then also we are saying some of the questions, like I said, it's not all of them, all right? So some of the questions are inferential questions, or they are reasoning questions. They require you, my dear, to draw a conclusion. This is the issue that you are given. What can you say about it? What feeling is created in you as you actually go through this? After reading this, okay, what effect does this particular word or phrase or sentence or anything, what is it that it has in you, my dear learner? So, like I've said, that these are some of the questions, but they are not limited to these particular ones, okay? So now when you read a comprehension now, there are certain, questions that you're going to be coming across, and we need to respond to them relevantly, okay? The way based on the demands of that particular question, my dear, to infer. Actually, it means the information you are given is in front of you, but you need to think about it. You need to come to a conclusion. Okay, if this is said in this way, and this is said in that way, then what then can I say? Okay, that is on this one. So these are just some of the questions, my dear learner, at home that you are likely to come across in a comprehension question. Okay, we'll go through more in our in the lessons that are going to come. Okay, now let's move on. Remember, I said our topic is we are responding to questions. Now, I want us to read this question, to read this passage. We read it the other time, but for the benefit of the one, my dear, who was not able to actually be part of this lesson, you are welcome on board right now. Let us read together. Right now, the deserted house, I walked that road every day on my way to school, and had often glanced at the house, but that day I actually stopped to look at it properly. Remember the other time we talked of what? Suspense that has been created, my dear learner. Okay, there was suspense which is created. What is it that drew the writer to actually look at this particular house properly? So, from this passage, you can see that in the very first sentence, my dear, which is actually a complex sentence now, you can tell that the writer never paid particular attention before. Remember that. So there is a word or there is a phrase which is actually giving us that idea. But then the writer then says, I just decided what is it about the deserted house, then decided to stop and look at it properly. Let's move on. I'm not sure what drew my attention to it. Maybe it was the creaking gate or the banging of the door at the end of the path as the wind whistled through it into the house. Not sure again, but something has drawn the writer, my dear. First wasn't just careful about it, didn't pay much particular attention, but now that the writer has decided, it looks like there is something possible. There's a possibility that it could be this or it could be that has drawn the writer. Why am I making this explanations, my dear? So that when we answer the questions, you remember how the passage is actually structured. It has a way, it has a bearing on the way the questions are going to be asked in one way or the other. So we are saying, the writer, like I'm saying, you said there is a possibility that some of these which is listed here may have made the writer to actually stop and look at this house properly. Let's move on. Something drew me from the pavement towards the overgrown privet hedge, which partially obscured the rotting wooden gate. Let me repeat that. Something drew me from the pavement towards the overgrown privet hedge, which partially obscured the rotting wooden gate. What are we getting in this sentence, my dear Lena? Is that now there is something for sure that has drawn the writer to this particular place. At first, it was like the writer wasn't sure, but now it looks like there is something specific that has drawn the writer into this particular place, the deserted word, house. Let's move on, my dear Lena. At home, with the paint peeling from it. Now, it says, as I stepped inside the gate, I was astounded by how unkempt it was. Why am I actually underlining some of these words? Remember, you go through, when you read a passage, you're going to read this particular passage, and then remember, said you need to visualize it. So definitely you're going to be, underlining some of the words. You feel like maybe there's something about this, okay? As I'm reading, to make sense to me as I'm reading this particular passage. So let me continue. As I stepped inside the gate, I was astounded by how unkempt it was. The long grass was a wilderness. I'm going to underline that, something about this. Filled with crisp packets and cans. Remember, my dear, in case they ask me to list, then I know, there are things which I can list over here. And any other rubbish that the people felt like hurling over the hedge or gate. Let's continue. There were remains of an oriental takeaway meal, which looked like it had attracted rodents. Now there are remains of an oriental takeaway meal, which looked like it had attracted rodents, as well as long grass. The wilderness was full of, now this is actually emphasis on the wilderness which we saw early on. The wilderness was full of thistles, and there were dandelion seeds blowing everywhere. So I decided that as I'm reading this passage, my dear Lena, at home, probably let's just go back. There are things that I've tried to underline because as I'm reading, I'm making sense of this particular passage, okay? Now I walked, probably I glanced and then stopped, probably properly, these things, because I'm saying, okay, writer, is drawing my interest in this particular passage. So this is how, as I'm reading, I'm going to, in a way, try to underline these because I want to visualize, I want to make sense of what I am reading. And then I said, my dear Lena, we should be going through the particular questions now. So as we go through the questions now, even if I'm reading the passage for the second time, it's okay. By the way, my dear Lena, it is advisable that when we read the passage, we don't just read it once, but let's read it the first time to get the general understanding. Let's read it again now for complete understanding. And it's called close reading. Remember, we talked about that early on when we began our media lessons. So when it is close reading now, this is where, like I've said, I've been underlining some of the words, some of the phrases, which are actually kind of like tickling my interest in one way or the other. All right, my dear. So now it's time for me to do what? To get into answering the questions. Let's move on together again, my dear Lena. Now, we are answering questions. Remember, I said when we answer questions, it is important that we identify what? Or we underline key words in the question. So we will do this together, my dear Lena. The passage at the back of our minds, and also now we have the questions till the end. Okay, now let's look at question 1. What does question 1 say? Which word in line 2 suggests the writer did not pay attention to the house prior? Keywords, which word? We are looking for a particular word. Remember the questions we said, some of them they require us to pick a word or a phrase. Now, specifically in line 2. And it suggests, it doesn't actually say this is it, okay? And then, which is another one, did not pay attention prior. Okay, let's go back, my dear Lena. By now I know that you already have the response with you. So in line 2, Quickly we go through the deserted house. I walked that road every day on my way to school and had often glanced at the house, but that day I actually stopped to look at it properly. So definitely you know the answer, my dear Lena. The answer is what? Glanced. That is the word we are looking for. Glanced. Let's move on. Give 2 possible reasons that made the writer to look at it. Now, keywords. 2, because for you it's easy, it's underlined. Now, look at possible. Remember I said it's not that this is actually what made the writer to look at it, but possible reasons, my dear Lena. What are these particular possible reasons? Let's move on. Let's go back into the passage, my dear Lena. What are these reasons? Writer says, so where do we have in the passage where it says kind of like a possibility? Writer says, I'm not sure what drew my attention. Then writer continues to give us what may have drawn his or her attention. Definitely my Lena at home. The answers are probably one of the reasons is what? The creaking gate, the banging of the door. All right. Remember, we are writing phrases most of the time, so it's not going to be a complete sentence. Possible reasons. Probably here you'll be given 2 lines, of which means the one reason you put it on the other line and the other one you put it on the following line. Whether the mark is 2 or it's 1, that is what we do. Let's move on, my dear Lena. Upon getting closer, the writer was surprised by what he saw. Okay, surprised. I'm going to underline what? Surprised. Pick a word suggesting writer was surprised. And I'm sure right now we know what is this particular word, my dear Lena. Astounded. Very good. And explain why he feels so. We are picking a word, so we'll go back into the passage. Why was the writer astounded? Because the house was unkept. That is the, response. So you see, now there are 2 things that we are supposed to do here. We are picking a word and we are also explaining why. It is important that we tackle both aspects of the question. So we pick a word and then we explain why he felt so. Let's move on, my dear Lena. Using your own words, explain the meaning of the sentence. The long grass was a wilderness. Of which means we are going to explain the same thing but using our own word, words. How are we going to explain using your own word, words? What is the meaning of this sentence? And I'm sure by now you know what it actually suggests. There is not going to be one specific answer here, but all that we write, it has to be relevant to what we have actually read. So, what are these? What is the meaning of this particular sentence? Long grass. Long grass, we already know. The area has an element of being what? It was a wild place. It was wild and uninhabitable. My dear Lena at home. Okay, so this is what the sentence, the place was just wild and it's not fit for human what? Habitation. That is what actually, that is the response for this particular, using the sentence is there, but we are using our own words. Let's look at the last one, my dear Lena. From paragraph 2, we are given a direction now. From paragraph 2, now we know where we're going to get the answer. Write 2 sentences, key, describing how abandoned the house was. Remember, when we are describing, we have to show. So 2 sentences. Let me stop there, my dear Elena. Now, it means when we respond to this particular question, the rule of a sentence must come into play. What is the rule of a sentence? Every sentence begins with a capital letter and it ends with a full stop. Some they call it a period anyway. All right. And if it's a sentence, there's going to be what? A subject. There's also going to be a predicate or verb. And then there's also going to be an object. Why am I doing this, my dear Lena? Look at this. Some of the questions, they require you a word. Some of these questions are going to require a phrase, probably especially possible reasons. We respond in phrases. Now, some of these questions will require a sentence of some sort. Now, my dear, you remember that most of the time sentences, we need them in exercise. Most of the time in reading and writing, we need them in exercise 3, especially the last section over there. Write 2 sentences doing this, okay? 2 different sentences. So it is important that the structure of a sentence comes into play. comes in handy. We cannot start a sentence by because. No, that is not a sentence. So it is important that we actually do this we do these things the right way. Okay, so 2 sentences describing how abundant the house was. Let's go to paragraph 2, my dear learner. Paragraph 2, how abundant the house was. Okay, we can actually take any of these, my dear learner, right now, but we are not going to repeat the long grass was a wilderness because it's been used in the passage. All right, so which one are we going to say? Probably the house had remains of an oriental takeaway meal, full stop. We can also say the house had actually attracted rodents, my dear learner. All right, so all those are sentences. The structure is very important right now. So, my dear learner at home, like I've said, let us keep in mind that when we respond to questions, we need to look at the keywords. All right, is it a word, is it a phrase, is it a sentence? That one is very much important. Okay, and read the passage with understanding. Don't just do the things for the sake of doing, but understand the passage very, very well and visualize the passage that you are reading. And then, my dear learner, before I leave, definitely we need to prepare for a writing task, which is going to be a descriptive task in the upcoming lesson with Mr. Lukele. So now I hope you have taken all that we studied with regard to descriptive writing, the style of it, and we will be able to actually use it for effect in our next lesson. At this time, let me wish you all the best and especially a great weekend while you still sanitize and keeping safe.
Thank you so much, Futhi. That was a wonderful lesson. We're hoping your Form 4s enjoyed it, and we'll be seeing you soon, I'm sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, viewers at home, that was the last lesson for the day. Thank you so much for tuning in on Home Study. And to remind you guys that we are live on YouTube and on Facebook from 2 p.m. until 5 p.m. from Monday to Friday. And of course, to use the WhatsApp number to text us any questions that you might have. Speaking of the YouTube YouTube page, I almost said YouTube page, Facebook page, that just doesn't make sense. Anyway, speaking of the YouTube page, you can subscribe on our YouTube channel, and of course do not forget to click on that bell to get any notifications of when we are live. Thank you so much once again for tuning in. We will see you guys next week Monday from 2 p.m. until 5 p.m. Have a beautiful weekend. Use the weekend to catch up on any lessons that you might have missed, and of course to rest. Thank you so much for tuning in from myself and the team. Thank you. Goodbye.